When you're 16 years old and you leave home and you're kind of that young, bright-eyed kid, you don't really have your mom and dad around to guide you and lead you down the path that you want to be led. So Don Hay was a huge mentor in my life. Like I said, I probably wouldn't have played in the National Hockey League if it wasn't for Tim Arnold. I definitely wouldn't have played in the National Hockey League. And it goes into business a little bit too as well. When you talk about people around you, keep your eyes open, make sure you pay attention to the details. And Don took a liking to me in the fact that he thought that I had something that could offer the team, but also he knew that I had the will to play at the highest level. So I watched, I paid attention, I listened to every word that he said and hung on every word that he said. And it made me not only a better hockey player, but it made me a better person away from the rink. I think sometimes when you get caught up in trying to be the best at your craft, you kind of lose yourself a little bit. And he invited me to dinner at least once a week with his family to spend time with his wife and kids and feel that home life. So I think sometimes it gets a little bit lost in business that we don't have those people to guide us, especially the young generation. They need a little bit more guidance than maybe we did at our age. But if you're someone that's in business and you have a young person working under you, make sure you impress upon them to listen, learn, and be a better person each and every day. I was drafted by the Montreal Canadiens in 1993, the last time a Canadian team won a Stanley Cup. So, yeah, I know, which is kind of crazy. I sit here as an ambassador for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we pray to the good Lord every day that that cup will come here, but it hasn't. I was part of 9 years of not doing that, so I can't take a lot of credit in anything of that. So, but the second mentor in my life is Pat Quinn. Pat Quinn was just an absolute gentleman. I played 9 years here in Toronto. 6 of them were under Pat Quinn. I wouldn't be the same husband, father, grandfather now that I am today without the guidance of Pat Quinn. I think that, in business, sometimes your boss may be a little bit intimidating. Pat was, you guys probably saw him on TV and you saw that big Irishman intimidation factor that came out on television, but he was a gentle giant, a man that cared about his players. He allowed us to be the people that we were supposed to be as human beings playing the game of hockey. He was just an influence in my life that has left a mark that I can only say that when you leave your business world, you retire from whatever you're doing in business, that somebody talks about you as highly as I talk about Pat Quinn and the way he shaped my life and made me a good human being. So, and then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about being a Toronto Maple Leaf. People talk about sport as an overall thing. I look at sport and where you play and where you get the option to play as a hockey player. There is no other place, and we get a little bit of this, we've seen it in the media here in the last couple of years about how the fans, get on the players a little bit. There is no better place to play hockey in the National Hockey League than Toronto. The fans are passionate, they care about the game, they care about winning, they care about pushing the players to be not only better hockey players, but get out in the community and be better mentors and people for the young generation that is Toronto Maple Leafs fans. I don't take it lightly, and I think sometimes, when you hear guys on TV talk about, oh yeah, it's great being a Toronto Maple Leaf, it's fun, it's all those things, but I take it even a step higher. Johnny Bower was a Toronto Maple Leaf before me, and when Johnny Bower used to come on the big screen at the rink and they'd show his highlights, the hair on the back of my neck would stand on end. There's just nothing like the history of the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's nothing like the people that played it before us as hockey players that allowed us to play this great game here in Toronto. And I think I owe a lot of what I'm doing now in my second career in hockey and speaking to you folks tonight to the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Maple Leaf organization. So it doesn't sit lightly on me that this is the best fan base in the National Hockey League, and the fact that hopefully one day we will have the parade like the Raptors had downtown and we can jump up and down and do all the crazy crap they did. So in saying that, I'd like to open it up to the crowd because I know you guys obviously have a lot of questions about leadership, mentorship, guidance, and all those sorts of things. So we'll just open it up to the crowd, and don't be shy. if I don't like the question, I'm pretty good at deflecting things. I've learned over the years. Playing in Toronto, you got to learn to handle the media pretty well. So, no Mitch Marner question yet? Tony?
Yeah, what's your favorite goal or whatever?
Yeah, I get a lot of places that I go, I get asked that same question. Probably my favorite goal was one that I didn't score. Travis Green, who's now the coach of the Ottawa Senators, which kind of kills me inside because he's my best friend and he's coaching the Ottawa Senators, scored a goal in overtime against Philadelphia in Game 6 here in 2000. I guess it would have been 2003 in overtime, and I got the assist on the goal. I was just as happy for him to score that goal as I was for myself to score it. It sent us to Game 7 back to Philadelphia, which we lost 7-1, which was not fun at all, going into Philadelphia and losing 7-1, but it gave us a chance. And anytime you get a chance to play in the Stanley Cup playoffs and be a part of an overtime goal like that, that was one of my favorites to be around.
I'm wondering, as a retired hockey player, do you have pain points, and what does your workout routine look like these days?
So, well, you're asking Tony and I talked about this before. I'm not Italian, but I'm part Italian. I love my food and I love my wine. So I'm not the biggest guy on the workout part of it. But I'll say this: in 2017, I had a hip surgery. My hip had gotten to the point where I had a piece of it broken off, and it must have happened when I was playing. And I was in an excruciating pain for about 3.5 years. And to go through that taught me a little bit more about I needed to get my mind working before I got my body working. So since then, I had the surgery. I haven't had any problems. Like a lot of hockey players have these lingering issues that end up working against them mentally more so than they do physically, because surgical repair things in this generation is so much more far advanced than it was for the generation before me. But I think it's mental. I think you got to work on your mind just as much as you have to work on the actual pain that you're dealing with. So I really started to get out in the community, do more speaking engagements, talk about things, talk about my journey. And you know, the things that we go through, it's not easy being a hockey player. It's not easy playing professional sports. There are a lot of things that, you know, are detrimental to your overall health and your overall quality of life after hockey. So I think it's mental. Work on your mind, work on your mind as much as possible. Obviously, you got to work on your body. I'm just 50, guys, so let's not take it too far here now. I still got lots of time to do the working out and the stretching.
You've been known to be an agitator and a disruptor in your career. We actually, in our organization, when we have a massive disruption, we call it getting Darcy Tuckered, and that's from our president, direct from the president. When you're talking to leaders of business and talk about disruption and agitation, how do you relate the impact that can have in a positive way versus it being a negative connotation?
Yeah, so not everybody's comfortable being that. Being able to be comfortable in your own skin while being a disruptor is not the easiest thing in the world. I've got 2 boys that play hockey as well. Trying to explain to them to be a little bit more like me and a lot less like the guys that they are is not the easiest thing. So in business, it comes the same thing. Not everybody's going to be a disruptor, but you're going to ask for them to be the best disruptor they can be, whatever that entails for them. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I loved being the most hated guy in the other rink. For me, it was the best compliment I could get as a hockey player, is I knew that I was driving not only the players and the other team crazy by getting involved in the middle of everything, but I was driving the fans and the other team crazy, and they booed and they went crazy, and it just caused a bunch of drama around the game that the other team didn't need at that particular point in time, which allowed our team to hide under the radar and do what we needed to do to be successful as a group. So not everybody's going to be comfortable doing it. I enjoyed it, loved every bit of it. People talking bad about you isn't bad. It's press, so enjoy it.
Thanks very much, Darcy.
No problem.
Just a question, you know, in our lives, a lot of us are leaders in general, whether we have a team or not. What do you find as a leader as one of the greatest attributes of one of your team members or teammates?
Yeah, communication, number one. You have to be able to communicate. You have to make everybody around you, especially if you're a captain or you're the number one position in the leadership group, you have to have that communication. You have to make everybody in that group feel like their contribution is important to the group, and make them be vocal in their own way. So we used to have captains meetings when I was part of the leadership group wherever I played, whether I was the captain myself or I was one of the assistants, or we just thought that some guys needed to come in the room and get better at being a leader. And we'd bring them in and have those discussions, but it has to be communication. If you're not communicating with your group and making them understand and making them feel like their contribution is important to the group, and sometimes, if it's going wayward, you have to bring them back into the group and make sure they understand what you're trying to accomplish, what the overall goal is, and at the end of it, if they're having success, you're going to have success. And if you're having success, they have to be an important part of that success.
As a hockey parent, you lived on both sides of the fence.
I did.
What's some advice that you can offer?
Get the hell out of the way. Like, I get asked this question a lot, and when I write my book, which I'm going to do at some point once my kids are done playing hockey, the biggest problem I had, especially with my oldest son, was that I tried to get super involved in trying to make him something that he was never going to be. Now, could I have guided him better in communication by trying to lean him a certain direction without getting so animated about making him into a player that I wanted to be? Absolutely. And that's the direction I took a little bit more with my younger son, even though he thinks he's Wayne Gretzky and he's playing Tier 2. Sometimes you just have to take a step back, be dad. I tried my best to always, when I got in the car after the game, I coached both of them, so I was coaching them while being dad. I tried to be dad in the car and coach when I was in the rink, which always didn't go according to plan. But the best thing for a hockey parent is just support. Be a support system, be a sounding board. Help them in the best way you can. Not everything's going to be perfect, no matter what their level of hockey is. They're going to have good games, they're going to have bad games, but I will say this, I've learned so much from the game of hockey that there's just nothing like it. There's nothing that can replicate playing on a team with 23 or 24 other individuals that have a goal that's like-minded, but aren't all like-minded. And you've got to be able to interact, you got to be able to take the good with the bad, you got to be able to take the peer pressure along with the good times. It's just a great game. So as a parent, you just got to try to support them through that as best you can. I wasn't great at it, to be honest.
Thank you so much for being here today. My husband asked me if he could get me in.
Yeah, get me in. Perfect.
Yeah, you're one of his favorites.
Oh, thank you.
I guess my question is a little bit simple, but hindsight is 20/20.
Yep.
What piece of advice would you give yourself to your younger aspiring NHL hockey player?
Wouldn't we all love to have that opportunity to go back when you're 20 years old or 21 years old and have 50-year-old Darcy talk to 21-year-old Darcy? I think humility would be the number one thing for me. When I was 21 years old, I was pretty cocky. I didn't have a lot of humility. I thought I was going to do everything in the game. I just wish I had a little bit more humility, understood the people around me a little bit better from a standpoint of, supporting them a little bit better as opposed to thinking about myself. And that's not hard to do because you got to have a little bit of that in you to get to the highest level, but you also have to have a certain amount of humility to understand that without the team, nobody's going to have success here. So if I could go back and talk to myself, I would passionately and humbly say to that young gentleman, please have a little bit more humility.
Being a professional athlete, as you have been, and tell me, what did it take to be the best you can be? Like every morning, at that level, the discipline must be incredible, well beyond the average person, I'm sure. And, maybe talk to us a little bit about the practices, how you got motivated, how you became the best you can be, or best version of yourself every single day.
So like I said earlier, I grew up on a farm in Alberta. Not hard when your dad gets up in the morning when the sun comes up, goes to work, and doesn't stop working till the work's done. Pretty big influence in my life. Give me some really good tools from a standpoint of just sitting back and watching him and his work ethic. So Work ethic was never going to be a problem with me because I was brought up that way. The second part of it for me was I was somewhat talented, but not talented enough to be an impact player in the National Hockey League. So I had won 3 Memorial Cups. I went to Montreal's training camp, got sent to the American League. My lip was on the ground. I scored 6 goals. I only had 6 goals at Christmas. And I got a phone call from my dad to come back to the farm. We had 2 days off for Christmas. And he told me to bring my skates. I was like, why am I bringing my skates? He could see the struggle was real in me, that I didn't know. He knew I could play in the National Hockey League, but he knew I needed to change the way I was thinking about the game. I was good, but I wasn't good enough to get to the highest level. So we did the young blood, we put our skates on, and he challenged me to one-on-one, and he absolutely kicked my rear end all over the rink. And I was like, wow, this is one of those moments where you look back on it and this could change my career. I went back, I started to get more competitive, I started to fight a little bit more, I started to be a little bit more nasty, harder to play against, and then the agitating part just started taking over. I was starting to drive people crazy, and it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I'm like, I can get to the highest level being this guy as opposed to being this star that I thought I was in my brain. Ended up scoring 29 goals that year, 94 points, and won Rookie of the Year. And I had no chance before I went back to that farm. So I think sometimes in life you just got to go back to your roots and realize that work's the most important part of it. Your work ethic, what is a staple, and always was a staple in my game. But I'd gotten to the point where I wasn't working anymore. I was relying on how good I was in the past. And that didn't bode well for me getting to the highest level. So I would have to say those 2 things were the things that kind of turned my career around. And I worked at it. I didn't want anybody to take my job. When those young kids came in every year, they had a red ass by the time they left me. I was like not letting one of them take my job. So it took them a long time to do it, but finally one of them did, and I helped mentor him. Ryan O'Reilly was a young kid in Colorado that came in, first-round pick, and they asked me if I would allow him to live in my house and mentor him, and I'd say that his Stanley Cup that he's got should be partly my Stanley Cup. But you learn to teach, and you learn to guide, and then you end up finishing, and that's part of it.
Darcy, over here.
Yep.
Hey, brother. Thanks for doing this. We truly appreciate it.
No problem. Don't kick me off yet.
No.
Oh,
No. I've got a question.
Yeah. Okay. Good. You've asked me too many already over the years.
Yeah, I know. You talked about leadership. You stated some good characters and the likes of Matt Sundin, who I've seen as agree with you, one of the best hockey players in my opinion.
Yep.
Quiet leader. It looked like. Others like Wendell Clark.
Yep.
Right. Been around you. You've been yourself.
Yep.
Can you pinpoint a moment where leadership and team came together in certain moments of games, period, where everything just seemed to, that message of elevation saying, hey, you felt it all come together and you elevated your game plan. What was that kind of leadership?
Probably the biggest time that happened to me in my career was 2002. Mats had gotten hurt in the first round against the Islanders. Alfredson had hit me from behind in Game 5 of the Ottawa series. We went into Ottawa down 3-2 in that series, and nobody in the paper, nobody in the media was giving us any hope to win that Game 6 in Ottawa. For some reason, we gutted that game out, and I'll never forget Joe Bowen's call, and probably a number of you have heard the call by Joe Bowen. Shane Corson and Travis Green, and I can't remember, Brian McCabe, I think it was Brian McCabe was on the ice with Thomas Caberlet. It was a 6-on-4, and I think the Ottawa Senators had it in our zone for about 45 seconds, and it was a shooting gallery. And Travis Green and Shane Corson were laying on the ice, blocking shots. Cujo was standing on his head. And the time wound down, and Joe Bowen said, God bless you, boys. I've never seen more heart in my entire life. And my heart was pounding so hard that night watching those guys. And it was a galvanizing moment for us as an organization and as a team, because we'd finally gotten to the third round. Now, I know that after that, it didn't all kind of fall into place, but that was one of the proudest moments and one of the times in my career where I could say that everything had kind of come together, even though I wasn't even playing in the game.
Outside your world of hockey,
Yep.
who is your hero or who was your hero growing up and why? And then another quick question.
Yep.
What's the craziest thing you've ever seen thrown on the rink?
Thrown on the rink. Okay, yeah, we'll get to that one, trust me. Growing up on a farm, your parents are out all day working. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents on my father's side. So my grandfather was just a quiet, not aggressive sort of man. So he's kind of my hero. Like just watching him as an individual and as a person, and this is outside the hockey world. I spent a lot of time with him. He taught me to play baseball. He taught me to skate. He taught me a lot of things that young Canadian kids don't get the opportunity to do. And he was a big part of me growing up and being a hockey player and loving hockey and wanting to play the sport. So I'd probably have to say my grandfather. The craziest thing that I've ever seen thrown in the ice, I don't know if I can actually say it. We were in Los Angeles, I think it was my second year in the National Hockey League, and a few of the boys that went out the night before they called it the Forum Club, which was right above the Great Western Forum in LA. And so we were taking warm-up the next day, and the boys got their hair slicked back, and everybody's looking good. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of the rink, 3 bras come flying over the top of the thing, and the girls are standing there like this. And I was just like, I'm 20 years old. This is not normal behavior. So that's probably the craziest thing I ever saw get thrown on the ice and not taken back and put back on.
Did you ever think about quitting? And if you did, what did you do to persevere through that and continue on with such a successful career?
Yeah, so I had gotten bought out by the Leafs in 2008 or 9. I can't remember the exact year. I just signed a 4-year contract and played 1 year of it and had scored 18 goals that year. I had a pretty good year, but they wanted to break up the team. And when they broke up the team, part of that was buying out my contract. And I remember going home and saying to my wife, like, I don't have the will in me to play anywhere else but Toronto. Like, I literally tattooed the Toronto Maple Leafs emblem onto my body. I bled blue. There was nothing I wanted more than to win a Stanley Cup here, and I knew that was never going to happen from that moment in time. And I'll never forget it. I went home and said, I don't know if I want to play anymore. And my wife looked at me and she goes, "You got 3 kids, you better get your ass back out there." I'm like, I gotcha.
Just a quick question. I know there's an unspoken kind of language about fighting when you line up, like it's time to go. Was there ever someone you lined up across from, and you're like, I don't want to mess with that dude, he's a bad dude, that where you had that nervousness of getting into a little fight with him? Yeah, so... Yeah, of course. There was those guys in the National Hockey League when I played where you're like, I definitely don't want to fight that guy. But I never fought. My fights all came to me. It was never one of those things where I lined up beside somebody and we looked at each other and it was 2 minutes into the game, you want to fight to get the crowd into it. I couldn't fight that way. My fights came to me because of the way I interacted on the ice with my play. So let's just put it into perspective. And there was a little bit of method to my madness, and let me take a moment to tell you about it. So if we were down 2-0 in a game, I knew the only way we were getting back in the game is for me to go after the biggest player on the ice. Because 5'10" Darcy against 6'7" Zdeno Chara, everybody on our bench was probably going, well, why is that crazy little bugger working so hard? It's 2-0. Like, we better get our asses into the game and start playing. And so if I drove him to the point where he wanted to fight me, he looked like a big bully, and our guys were all like, wow, let's get him. Now, if we were up 2-0 in the game, I'd be going after the Wayne Gretzky of the other team, because if the Wayne Gretzky of the other team had no control over his emotions and was thinking about me the whole game, he wasn't thinking about scoring anymore. So that's the way I predicated my thought process on trying to
control the game from an agitating perspective. Beyond that, I fought out of anger. Like something either happened to one of my teammates or I did something to somebody that they didn't like, so I had to fight. And I didn't mind it. And I kind of grew up that way. Me and my brother fought all the time.
Nice. Say your team's performing at like 65, 70%.
Yep.
They're doing good, but they could be doing better.
Yep.
How'd you motivate or encourage them to bring it up to 95%?
Well, so there's two ways to do that from my perspective as a leader, the way I thought about the game. I was always the type of guy that spoke up in the locker room. I was not afraid to say and speak my mind if I thought that we needed guys to pick up their game. Peer pressure is something that's not a bad thing. You know, I watch young individuals now not speak to each other in a language that's going to push them in a direction that's helpful to the group. Everybody's kind of afraid to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing when it comes to leadership. I had no problem doing it. Like, sometimes you're going to get your feelings hurt in sport. That's just going to happen to you. You know, I've had interactions where guys have told me, shut your mouth. I'm like, that's fine. I'll shut my mouth, but I'm going to play the game a certain way. You better bring up your game to elevate it to how hard I feel like I'm working out there. And then the second aspect of that is just by going out there and being the hardest working guy. If you're the hardest working person, nobody can ever say anything to you from a standpoint of, you know, and that's when I look at our team as a whole over the last 10 years. I think you guys feel like maybe they're not as likable as they should be because you don't feel like they're giving everything they possibly can. So I never wanted that to be said about me over the course of my career. I never wanted that to be a thing. Yeah, could I be playing hurt? Could I have injuries? Could I not be giving like everything that everybody wants as a fan base? But there'd have to be something detrimentally wrong with me for me not to play a certain brand of hockey. That's kind of my leadership style. Good, bad, or indifferent. Sometimes my kids say I'm a little too intense when it comes to my leadership qualities, but I'd rather be over intense than under intense, that's for sure.
Hey, Darcy.
Hi.
So let's talk a little bit about today's hockey and put your Leafs allegiances aside if you can for a sec.
Yep.
A Canadian team hasn't won the Cup since '93.
Yep.
Who's next?
Who's the next Canadian team? Well, the last 2 years I probably would have told you it was Edmonton because they got there. I don't know. Listen, I'm a big believer in this organization, and I said that earlier. And I try to take the rose-colored glasses off when it comes to it. We have good people there, and that's the one thing that I can say is we have really good management. We have really good direction. Our time's coming. Like I truly believe that. Like I know I might be a little bit biased in my thought process on everything, but at some point it's the dam's got to break, and when it breaks, we're going to do it. Like we were one shot away from it last year. I mean, one shot. Like take all the rest of the crap out of it. Yeah, we lost, whatever. We didn't get past the second round. We were one shot away from putting that team out, and that's the best team in the National Hockey League 3 years running, in my opinion.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Yeah, sure. Let them fly.
What qualifies you as a leader?
What qualifies me as a leader?
Yes.
Well, I played on 4 National Hockey League teams. 3 of them I wore a letter, so I was in the leadership group of those organizations. I was a captain of a Memorial Cup team that won the Memorial Cup. That was a champion. I was assistant captain on the 2 other ones that won it. Leadership's not defined on just that, though, wearing a letter. I think leadership's defined on, can you make people around you better? And I'd like to think over the course of my journey as a hockey player, as a person, that I tried to make everybody else around me better just as much as I tried to make myself better. And that goes back to the other question about humility. It took me a while to learn it, but once I learned it, it became a huge thing in my life.
And my second question is, when you're looking at hockey and you're looking at star players,
yep.
Everybody thinks of Wayne Gretzky,
yep.
But nobody thinks of who played with Wayne Gretzky. So a question is here, what do you say to that, in terms of everybody now remembers Wayne Gretzky,
yep.
But nobody remembers who played with Wayne Gretzky for him to win
Yeah, I do. I definitely do. I grew up in Edmonton, outside of Edmonton in Alberta. Trust me, I remember all those players. The Oilers did win another Stanley Cup after Gretzky left, so there was some pretty good leaders and players there to win a Stanley Cup after Gretz left. So, yeah, it takes a team. There were some outstanding hockey players that played with Wayne to win those championships in Edmonton. I remember as a kid growing up, going to school, and my teacher would come, and I'd have my textbook open, but I'd have a book open inside my textbook, writing the lines down for the Edmonton Oilers, what I thought, being the coach, the lines should be. So I know a lot about that organization and that team at that time. So yeah, if Gretz didn't have those players around him, he definitely wouldn't have won those Stanley Cups. He went to LA and got to a cup final, which he should have never got to the cup final because he high-stuck Dougie. And that's tough for me to say because Wayne's my favorite player of all time. So, but that in saying that, Gretz never won after he left the Oilers. So there was a ton of good players playing with him.
We're talking a lot about leadership, and no leader is perfect, and there are moments where you fail or you get it wrong.
Yep.
Can you give us an example of when that happened to you and how you managed that?
Yeah, absolutely. We had won 2 Memorial Cups in Kamloops, and we lost in the final the following year. We thought we had it won, and I took it to heart. I took it as it was partially to do with the way I was leading the group. I'm a pretty intense guy, and sometimes especially young players that are really good players, don't take well to, criticism. We had young guys on that team that ended up playing in the National Hockey League that were far better hockey players than I was, but I was the captain of the group, so I had to make decisions that I thought were best suited for our group to win, and they probably weren't the best ones, and we lost. But I learned from it over the summer, and we had those conversations, and those guys were brought into leadership roles and were able to give me a little bit more of a subtle reminder that maybe my leadership qualities that I used the year before weren't the ones that would help us win. So, and I didn't take it like it was a shot against me. I just took it as, I needed to change my leadership ways and how I was providing, maybe not criticism, but how I was providing guidance to the young players on the team. And sometimes it's not the best. Sometimes you have to learn from it.
What, in your entire hockey career, what team did you like to play the most and why?
Hands down, Toronto Maple Leafs, not even close.
Sorry, I meant opposing team.
Oh, what did I hate? What did I like playing against?
Who did you like to play against and why?
New York Rangers. I love Madison Square Garden. I love the show. I love Broadway. I like the bright lights. Sometimes you have to have certain personalities to play in certain places, and I enjoyed being a part of the bright lights. Saturday nights for me, Hockey Night in Canada, the whole country watching. It's when I played my best. I loved it. Thursday night in Columbus, Ohio, probably wasn't my best game. It's just the way I was. Some guys loved Thursday nights in Columbus. I didn't.
Looking back on, a really intense game.
Yep.
You're behind.
Mm-hmm.
Between second and third.
Yep.
What is the most memorable thing that a coach has told your team and that has turned things around?
You're going to laugh. So Pat Quinn had this way about him, and not everybody understood what he was talking about half the time he was saying things. He's just a brilliant man. So I think we were in the Ottawa series, and usually we had given Ottawa the business, like physically, and they beat us 5-1 in game 1, I think in 2002. And we were down going into the third period of game 2. And reminder, both these games are in Toronto. We go back to Ottawa down 2-0. It's going to probably be pretty hard to come back in that series. So Pat came in the dressing room and he started yelling, "Do you want to be an ant or do you want to be a cockroach?" And half the room's like, "What?" And he goes, "You either be an ant or a cockroach. Ants, when the lights come on, they scurry and run away. When the lights come on, cockroaches stick around. Be a cockroach." And he left the room. We ended up winning the game in overtime and winning the series. So it's a pretty memorable one.
I have a question around the psychology of a game.
Okay.
So obviously hockey is a very physical game, demanding, etc. But I liked what you mentioned earlier about trying to psych out other players. I was just curious how much of that plays into the strategy of the game outside of the physicality of it, obviously.
Not as much anymore. You'd be surprised. And that's why a player like Brad Marchand is so effective. He still uses that psychological advantage to throw the other team off their game. Not a lot of players do that anymore. A lot of these guys have grown up playing with and against each other, and social media has put a real crimp in being able to grind the other guy down because they're all buddies. Like after the game, if somebody said something, they'd be like, "Hey, dude, on social media, why you over me, man? Like, what's your problem?" Like, I don't understand it. I'm like, I could go grind a guy all night, tell him all kinds of things in his ear that I was going to do this and do that to them, and then after the game, I could go for a beer with the guy and say, like, it's just a game, bud. Like I'm playing a game to win the game. I'm not playing the game to ruin a friendship. We'll be friends. It's totally fine. But I had to do that to be successful as a hockey player. It gets lost on the new generation a little bit more because of social media, in my perspective. But there has to be some sort of advantage, especially if you're not a star player. And not that Brad isn't a star player. He's very effective in what he does, and he plays on the Canadian national team, for crying out loud. He's a good player. But there's an aspect of it that has to, and I think that's what's been lost in the game a little bit, is the personality of the player. Everybody's kind of the same now. They say the same things. Oh, we had a bad shift. Yeah, it's a bad shift. We'll let it go. Or stop. Just say what you feel. The personality's gone a little bit, and I wish there was a little bit more personality in the game because it brings in that other part of the game that is so enticing to me. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.